I'll leave the stage to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And indeed, this is my first gig in my new company. And I'm going to present my company. It's called P1 Kemppinen, so that you know it and you can contact me. Well, basically, I mean, this topic is extremely interesting. We have been receiving more cash to the film industry and TV industry during the recent years. And as we soon will learn, 6 countries nearby have adopted these cash or tax rebates and these financing tools, as we call them. And I've done a short mapping about these countries, so this will be a presentation with a lot of information and very few pictures and very tiny pictures compared to the other presentations that we have seen. And there will be one clip, one moving image clip later on. But we will also have a qualified panel afterwards to discuss the state of matters. So, let us begin. As you can see, I mean, there are 6 incentives. One of them is tax credit, that's the one in Lithuania. And then we have 5 tax rebates, and 2 countries that don't have one, Denmark and Sweden. Coming back to that later. The models are rather similar, as I was telling you, I mean, except for the Lithuanian tax credit. And amounts are also rather similar. In Estonia, you can get a bit more if you have 1 or 2 heads of departments. And in Latvia, you can get a bit more if you have a storyline or depiction of Latvia in the film or TV series. And now a warning, because there will be more details. These are the small captions of big films that you haven't seen yet. The one up there is the James Bond, and the other one is the Christopher Nolan one. The first one was shot in Norway, and the other one was shot in Estonia. And I'm going to explain these column by column. I mean, the source of the money, or where you are actually applying for the money, is the Film Institute, except in Finland, where it's an entity called Business Finland, which is under the Ministry of Economy. I'm not going into detail to where the money is actually coming from. And as you can see, the amounts are rather similar. Then a bit about the eligibility. And here we have something that is called the standard criteria. And that means that the purchases of goods and services or salaries that are eligible in the taxation of the said country. This is a general one-sentence requirement. Norway, Finland, and Lithuania specify the requirements more. Iceland, Norway, and Lithuania demand cultural test, and Finland and Norway also require certain minimums of international financing and distribution. Other notes. In Iceland, all the European Economic Area costs can be included under some circumstances. Finland wants some information about sustainability, but only in reporting. They said to me that they will start building a policy later, maybe about sustainable filming, but I mean, this is why they want to gather some information when the producers report back to them. And in Estonia and Latvia, how you can get more, these are the rules. The Lithuanian tax credit model is a bit different. You don't get a rebate, but you have a production company locally who seeks donors, local investors who can get a tax credit for their surplus tax, and that's the way the money comes into the production. And that's a different model that was much in use in Europe before, but not so much anymore. But in Lithuania, it seems to work perfectly. So now you know the structure. The next one is also a bit like this. First column is, of course, that how much money is available in each country, and then there are some budget and spend restrictions. For example, Iceland has no cap, but I mean, I can tell you that the result yearly has been between 6 to 12 million euros. You can look at the Norwegian and Finnish budget restrictions, and you can immediately see that they clearly want to exclude smaller budget films and TV dramas. And when it comes to deadlines, there is only one deadline in Norway and Latvia. Actually, the Norwegian money for this year, you would have to have applied to that in end of November last year. and we will probably hear of the results very soon. And one more thing is that in Norway, this money cannot be combined with the money from the National Film Institute, so you actually can apply for either or, but not both. That is not the case in the other countries. Then, some specifics. Altogether, 40 million euros worth of incentives. So that's a lot last year, and it's growing. Finland is the biggest one, close to 10 million, but I mean only for 6 foreign productions and 19 domestic companies received the money. So it has been slowly growing with the international productions, but basically the money seems to be there more for the domestic companies, or has it been like that in the past? They don't give any specific information about the productions who received the support or the funding. They only mention the companies, but I can tell you that, for example, The Conductor, Advocat, and the second season have been in Finland. Iceland, last year 8 million for 56 projects altogether. Iceland has had this incentive since 2002, and it's clearly been working in Iceland very well. I understood from Icelandic producers that it's quite easygoing, and it's, as I mentioned earlier, there is really no cap, so you could actually get a lot from there. But then you come back to the question of resources, that how many people actually you have, how many film crews you have, and so on. During the last years, also some domestic TV series have been benefiting from this funding. Norway, 7 million, but only 3 projects last year, so it's very, very selective. And as you can see, they look for big films and big series. Very, very selective. Lithuania, really interesting, close to 7 million last year, and they also report quite clearly on how much the producers actually spend in Lithuania. So last year it was 23 million euros, and 16 foreign projects producers got the money. You all know Chernobyl. They received 3 million. Catherine the Great, Out Stealing Horses, the Norwegian film, The Conductor, also from here, not only from Finland. So it is very, very well-working system. The service providers are efficient, partly because there has been a tradition of a studio in Lithuania already in the 90s that was built by the Warner Brothers, actually. And you know that the Stranger Things, the Netflix series, is going to be filmed there. Estonia, nearly 6 million, a big one as well. Chris Nolan's Tenant, and Bernard War, Hamilton, All the Sins, and so on. Dozen productions coming this year. And finally, Latvia, the smallest one of them, 6 projects in 2019. So, how is the money being spread? Very diversely. Local productions, Finland, Iceland, Norway, benefit, local producers benefit in those countries. Swedish productions travel a lot. We will soon hear why, if you don't know it yet. Especially to Finland and Baltic countries. And of course, the SVODs. They are big beneficiaries of these systems. How much role do the other factors than money play? It's the locations, landscapes, be it glacier, power plant, 19th century history, but also the authentic way of doing it. I quote the local producer from Lithuania who was working with Chernobyl, Linata Misekite, that, I mean, they were able to avoid the typical Western stereotypes of the East by putting right toasters, right kind of water bottles, and so on into the scenes. So that's clearly one reason. And of course, the creative, personal, and the price level. That's it. And now I invite the panel to the stage. Welcome Daniel Lägersten, the founder and executive producer of B.Academy. You can take a seat.
Thank you.
And Kristian Taska, producer from Taska Film in Estonia. Welcome. Maybe you can clap a hand some there. And Tomas Eskilsson, head of strategy at Film Väst. Have a seat, please. And we go off to discussion. I'll ask Daniel first. That why have the incentives become the new norm in Sweden? Why they have become the new norm in Sweden?
The new norm, it's because it's an international market, and we need to keep the pace according to quality, and also when it comes to the money. I mean, as a producer, you need to force to grab the green light, and the incentives have been quite important for the decision makers.
Good. Kristian, what are the reasons for foreign producers to come and shoot in Estonia?
Well, I think the time is good, especially right now, because it used to be that people were hardworking and fast working, and you had good pricing. But now, by year to year, the quality of the work is really growing. So right now we have actually reached a very good time. We don't know how long it will last. Looking at the West, maybe not forever, because we have the quality, we have the quick speed, and we have the good pricing. Sooner or later, probably, the working hours will get shorter, and the pricing starts growing.
Tomas, have you seen Swedish productions going abroad from your region because of the incentives?
Yes, but we have seen that for a very long period of time, and we don't see much going away to the here mentioned countries. In our case, it's more production that goes to Hungary, Czech Republic, Croatia, if we look to the feature film side of things. And still, I will say that it's more from a public funder's perspective. What is more and more common is that the projects, when we get the projects already from the beginning, they have split productions. They have part of the shooting here and part of the shooting somewhere else. They have part of the post-production here, they have part of the post-production somewhere else. Of course, depending on if it's how you want to structure and what type of story you are going to tell.
Daniel.
And it's also very important to say, if it's a normal budgeted Swedish film, not TV drama, it's very uncommon that you use an incentive, because then you can finance 100% out of Sweden.
So it's mostly for the bigger budgets?
It's for the bigger budget films.
Yeah. What are the major differences when you are working in different countries, Daniel?
I think it's differences between which country you choose to use. Of course, according to Latvia, if you go to Hungary or Croatia. But as me, as a producer, being a producer for 20 years from Sweden, I was raised with very, very small team doing local production in Sweden. And when we started to go abroad and catch the incentives, you meet a more international way of actually doing the production, where they are used to work with the Americans all over. The Americans were really early to jump in and lift the money. So when I arrived there as a Swede, I have to deal with the norm of a huge team. So when I trying to have a double role for an electrician, for example, they not used to that, and they sort of unheard of. So I, as a Swedish producer, need to work with a bigger team. And in the end, I find it very good, because it gives me, in the end, good quality. And of course, when we're talking tax incentives, it's, I make, according to wherever I am producing, I need the greatest team. It's the humans that actually we use to produce. So it's not all about the money.
Kristian, I know that you've been producing a lot in Estonia by yourself for Estonian films and so on, but you've also been working a lot as a service provider for foreign productions, including all the scenes that was mentioned earlier and some others. So how do you feel about it? Is there a way of a difference when a foreign producer is coming to work in Estonia?
Well, I actually have worked mostly as a service provider with the producers who have actually also co-produced before.
Yeah.
As, for instance, the project All the Sins that got awarded last year here is the main producer is Ilkka Madila, who's a good friend and almost like an elder brother to me. So I think in that sense it has been kind of very nice because you have this personal level contact. It's not kind of shocking you somebody new is coming. But I think the main difference with the foreign production coming to Estonia is actually, it's even, I would say even a bit easier, because if you have the foreign crew, it actually very often makes the 12 or 10 hour working day into 8, and it's you consider more Saturdays and Sundays. So actually it is I think a kind of a pleasure that we, with our smaller budget local productions, try to also accommodate in the future more and more to our crews.
Yeah. And you also said when you talked earlier that it's a question of friendship or knowing the people, that you tend to go there where you know how it's functioning, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're jumping into another country, you need to team up with a service provider. I mean, it has to be a relationship where it could be polite, and it's actually the production service team that helped me to find the crew, and it's in their hands to get the right people for the right wages and so on. So of course the service provider is very important for me.
Actually, I think that at this point we could have a look at the trailer for your series that you shot in Hungary, right? The Ambassador, and you could introduce it.
Thank you. Yes, as an example, I brought a clip from a production that we are dealing with Viaplay. It's actually a series that we shot in 3 different original languages. So I think it's what we're targeting is the trend in the need for original languages production. So in this case, Viaplay is in the Nordic countries, and they're dealing with sort of sending out Swedish stuff into Norway. But at this time, we try to do a Swedish version, a Norwegian version, and a Danish version on the same script. And as we done for several years, according to entertainment shows, we shooting it back to back. So I want to show you a clip, how it can look like when you have the same script with the main actors talking 3 different languages. So that's what I want you to see.
And then we talk a bit more about that. Okay, let's watch the clip. Cost reasons, or what?
Yes, excuse me?
Cost reasons, or what?
Yeah, cost reasons. Of course, it's a cost-effective way of doing it. So this is a story about the ambassador in Mexico. And it was shot mainly in Hungary and partly in Mexico and the rest in Gran Canaria. And we were shooting it back to back, so it was 116 shooting days.
Kristian, what have you learned from the foreign productions that come to shoot in Estonia?
Well, a lot of good things, of course, and of course it's also a very interesting thing to think about. Is very often we are talking only about the cost and the money, and I think what we year by year working together in co-productions and services, of course, we learn, the quality goes up, but also me as a producer, I learn how to kind of also more value the free time of the workers and kind of additional kind of this human and comfort values. Yeah. So it's not. I think that's what also you want to bring in. It's not only about actually money and efficiency always, but that's, I think, what the Eastern Europe learns from the West, how to live better and how to have more fun from your work.
And you, what did you learn?
What I learned, I'm still learning new things every day. I think it was, according to what we saw right here, was a very interesting way of actually working together with the directors from 3 different countries on the same script. And that's something that we brought up the quality of the script and the show and the collaboration between the 3 different countries, between the 3 different executives. So what it sort of proved is actually something that we've been dealing with for long in the Nordic countries with co-producing, because talking together, racing, evaluate, it's a good way of doing it.
This all sounds very nice and fine, and there is, as I said, 40 million euros yearly available. But then again, when I talk to many people, many producers, when I was doing this research, they all come back to one question. That's the question about the resources, about the human beings and the workers in this area. I mean, the film workers, the creative people, and that there is a lack of, there will be, if there is not a lack of them yet. So what do you think? I mean, Tomas, Sweden doesn't have an incentive, is it?
No, Sweden has no incentive. And very interestingly enough, in this particular region, we have a growing number of particularly Danish, but also Norwegian productions that come to shoot. In Norway, they have an incentive, but very few Norwegian projects can benefit from that. And of course, Denmark lacks this sort of tool also. But in Sweden, I think, of course, we really need and want to have an incentive. But it's not an easy question to work with when it comes to politicians, because right now we are more or less at the maximum level when it comes to the capacity we already have. And this, of course, have to do with the enormous volume increase, particularly in drama series production. And that means that the volume of production is probably a lot higher, or if you count it in economical terms or whatever. Even if we have a lot of Swedish productions moving outside, the volume of production inside the country is higher than before. And then it's not an easy case to address when you should speak with politicians and stakeholders, unfortunately enough. So, and of course, I think there is an element that you don't perhaps see if you are not in the industry, and that is, of course, that this it's not a permanent state of where we are, because we can, of course, grow capacity. And I think incentives is a good tool to, in the end, grow capacity, and of course then hopefully grow capacity without increasing costs too much, because that's also, of course, very often happens when you have an incentive, and particularly if you have a big influence of American productions coming in, that you can see a very dramatic rise in salary levels. And we had Swedish producers going, for instance, to Ireland. Oh, the paradise of Ireland, you can count all cost is eligible, blah, 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 and ends up saying no more Ireland for us, because the cost level was so extremely high. And then you, of course, have others going to territories where capacity is on maximum level already, with hard problems to actually find the very skilled crews and the people they need. But still, of course, we want to have an incentive in Sweden.
Kristian, I mean, do you see this capacity problem in Estonia as well, thinking about the growing number of productions, and what has been done, if you have seen it?
Yeah, well, tell you honestly, we are going to film. I'm going to produce this year four feature films, and it is a little worry you always don't get the first choice what you thought of, but there's of course many people of the same high quality, so it also opens you doors actually to start and try with new people. Well, it's especially, of course, it has always been very easy in our region with the shooting equipment. It's just put it on a ferry and get it over, but we are more and more, let's say, also taking people from Latvia. We can't take the people from Scandinavia because they are just too expensive for us. But we definitely are looking forward to bringing in for bigger production from Latvia, from Lithuania, from the same price and quality level.
Yeah. And I guess you see the same thing, I mean, when you are in Hungary and different countries.
Yeah, of course. It's always the first obstacle to climb.
Yeah.
It's actually to find the right crew with a great experience, because they are often used already and signed up for like a year to come. So it's a serious question, and we need to learn new youngsters and take responsibility to team up with assistants and so on. And even if it's abroad or in Sweden, but in Sweden, as a Swedish producer, of course, I'm concerned, because as a Swedish producer, I need to do a lot of productions in shooting in Sweden, some locals and so on. And when it's hard to find great crew, we get lack of the quality that the commissioners need. And in the end, of course, the audience, because we will fall apart if we can't deliver good stories with good quality according to the international market. I mean, they can watch American shows wherever.
Let's go back to money a bit. I mean, and talk about how easy it is. I mean, compared to the traditional funding that you get. I mean, of course, I guess that the procedures in every country are very different and the bureaucracies are very different. But I mean, do you see, as a film producer, and you also, Kristian, that it's somehow more flexible with the incentives, or is it?
I mean, for example, it's always a risk. When you take on a production, you have a green light. It's a risk, and when you go to green light, every financer look at the paper and try to see how do we share the risk, and the tax incentives have been a part of solving that and sharing the risk and so on, and a way for us as producers to actually get the green light. But in the end, we're sitting with a big problem, like we're shooting in Gran Canaria, as I said, for this ambassador, and we don't get the money back. It's like a lack of 1 year that we had to wait for the money. So it's a cash flow problem as well.
Well, this is now what Estonia has been priding itself, that it's small, it is kind of fast, it is like an internet country. So that is actually a good experience for me, because it's really, you get the answer in 1 month and you get the monies back in 40 days, and that's how it has happened. And actually, a good system is also that the money comes from the state directly back to the foreign client. So it's no hassle also just going by the service provider to get the money back.
That's wonderful. We are running out of time, so to end, how would you want to develop the incentives? And Tomas, I mean, of course, I think that you want to say something about Sweden.
We want to have an incentive, but I also think it's important to address a question that is in the room but not really talked about. And in the end, because this is taxpayers' money, and in the end, I think it will be a European quest if a very big majority of that money ends up in global American-owned streamers' pockets. Because what is the reason why we have taxpayers' money for film and drama production? And I also think it's already a little bit simmering in the European Union's corridors, this question. And I'm 100% sure that there will be a discussion if this shouldn't be predominantly for European productions.
Okay. Kristian, do you have something in mind?
Well, at least they work in that sense that I know that Estonian Film Fund or Film Estonia has done extensive study on the taxes they generate, and as much as the statistics show truth or not, at least it seems that this system is actually good for the economies. And then what more, I think one good thing for us is that really there is no ceiling, so this has been kind of lifted. And the second thing is, of course, I would like to see more regional funds. Estonia has now 2, so regional funds are very positive additional benefit.
Yeah. Daniel, what about learning new ways of working or something?
Yeah, no, but I think just to round up, I think traveling around Europe and so on, shooting in different places, actually educates each team worker. Yeah. So together, as an arena of Europe, we're actually increasing our knowledge of shooting with great quality. So I'm quite happy of having the opportunity.
Yeah, personally, I think that the Finnish way of taking into account the sustainability is really important in the future, already now, but I mean, we'll see how they work it out. Thank you, my panelists, and good luck with your projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.